afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Lina Tamim and these are today's top stories. UN Arab League envoy Lakhdar Brahimi returns to Beirut and meets with top Lebanese officials. A Hamas militant is killed and another critically wounded by Israeli tank fire in the southern Gaza Strip. And Indonesia summons Australia's ambassador to Jakarta over spying allegations. UN Arab League envoy Lakhdar Brahimi says that Lebanese top officials are in favor of being invited to a peace conference on Syria in Geneva later this month. Brahimi held separate talks with President Michel Sleiman, Speaker Nabih Berri, and Prime Minister Najib Mikati in Beirut and briefed them about the preparations for the Geneva II conference. The UN envoy arrived from Damascus, where he called on Syrian authorities and the opposition to attend the peace talks. The envoy, who met this week with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and Damascus-based opposition groups, said the Syrian government has confirmed it will attend the conference. Speaking at the Grand Serai, he said Syria's crisis is endangering the region and that Lebanon has suffered from its repercussions. Brahimi then met with Mikati before he scheduled talks with Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour. Future Bloc leader Fouad Sanyura visited Prime Minister Najib Mikati last night, culminating a round of talks he held with the country's top officials following his return from Paris. Sanyura's meetings started on Thursday with President Michel Sleiman as part of a delegation from the southern city of Sidon. He then held talks at his residence with Phalange Party leader Amin Jmail. The MP also held a telephone conversation with Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja and several officials from the March 14 alliance. Officials close to Sanyura told reporters he was still committed to his promise to remain in contact with Speaker Nabih Berri. Ties between them have recently deteriorated after Sanyura accused Berri of seeking to impose the power of the parliament on the rest of the institutions amid an insistence by the speaker to call for parliamentary sessions. Prime Minister Najib Mikati stresses that officials are determined to tackle the situation in Tripoli. After meeting with a delegation of Tripoli MPs, Mikati said the army and security forces will continue their mission to halt the unrest and restore calm, as well as protect his residents. He further urged all sides to abide by the law. The Tripoli delegation included MP Robert Fadel, Samer Saadi, Mohamed Kabara, Ahmed Karami and Samir Jasser. A close supporter of radical Sunni cleric Ahmed al-Asir was apprehended at the northern entrance of Sidon as he was dressed as a woman in a niqab and was carrying a hidden grenade. Judicial police, with the help and cooperation of the Lebanese armed forces, set up an ambush for Ahmed al-Kablawi after they were informed he was moving in disguise from Beirut's Kola towards Sidon on a bus. A Safir newspaper says the man was arrested and taken to a police department for investigation, where a grenade was found hidden in his underwear. Kablawi is one of the 8 people who form Asir's Shura Council and is currently being questioned over his alleged role in the Abra clashes with the army and his latest encounter with Asir. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev says the departure of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad cannot be used as a precondition for talks. In an exclusive Reuters interview, Medvedev appealed to both sides in Syria's civil war to compromise and said he hopes that an international peace conference on Syria will be held before the end of this year. U.S., Russian and UN envoys are to meet in Geneva on Tuesday as part of preparations for the long-delayed conference, which Russia and the United States first proposed in May. Western and Gulf Arab countries opposed to Assad say the Geneva talks should be between a single delegation of the Syrian regime and a single delegation of the opposition led by the coalition. Israeli warplanes have struck a military base near the Syrian city of Latakia. CNN quoted an Obama administration official saying the targeting missiles might have been destined for Hezbollah. An explosion at a missile storage site in the area was widely reported in the Israeli press, but an attack has not been confirmed by the Israeli government. Lebanon's MTV quoted unnamed sources in Jerusalem saying that Turkey was behind the Latakia attack in revenge for the recent shooting down of a Turkish plane in the same area. Now, for more news on the ground, Syrian troops heavily shelled rebel-held areas of southern Damascus as part of a bid to completely cut them off from air bases in the countryside. Sources say the advance comes amid fierce shelling on the town since early this morning. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says people were fleeing their homes and there are serious fears for the lives of the large number of civilians living in that area. The army is trying to advance on areas in the south of the capital. and is trying to isolate them completely from the southern countryside, where the rebels have rear bases. The reports come a day after army rocket fire killed 8 people in Damascus, southern Al-Hajjad al-Aswad neighborhood, which was part of an escalation by the regime in the area. Coming up next, the National Security Agency taps directly into communications links used by Google and Yahoo. More details after the break. Welcome back. United Nations Peace Envoy Lekhter Brahimi says Iran would be welcome at the Geneva Conference on Syria, but the guest list is still in negotiation. Brahimi's comments in Damascus triggered anger among the opposition, as Iran is the main backer of the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. Iranian ambassador to Syria, Mohammad Rida Shibani, had earlier expressed his country's willingness to take part in the Geneva II peace talks to help solve the political conflict in the war-torn country. On another note, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif says his country should not pursue a nuclear weapons program, but in return the West must accept a peaceful enrichment program.
We need to follow a single objective. That is, Iran should make the objective, or at least the stated objective of the Western members of 5+1, that Iran should never have nuclear weapons as its own objective. And I believe the West should accept Iran's objective that it should have a peaceful enrichment program as its own objective. For Iran, even to have a perception in the world that we are seeking nuclear weapons is detrimental to our security. So it is in our interest, it should be our objective for the world to know that we have nothing to do with nuclear weapons. We don't seek them, we don't want them, we don't believe they have any use for us. But the second one, the second objective, probably becomes more difficult for our Western friends to accept. That is, they should make it their own objective for Iran to have a peaceful enrichment program. There is actually an augmented level of mistrust that has been created by all sides, and we need to address them. Of course, we believe that the other side is more responsible for the mistrust, depriving Iran of its right from the beginning of the revolution, but let's not try to share blame, or to assign blame. Let's share blame.
A Hamas militant was killed and another critically wounded by Israeli tank fire in the southern Gaza Strip. Hamas sources say clashes broke out in an area after a number of Israeli tanks crossed the border fence into the Gaza Strip near the Palestinian terror tunnel. The Israeli tanks had remained there for several hours and clashes erupted as militants fired mortar shells at the tanks. An Israeli helicopter had also fired a rocket in the area. On October 13th, Israel displayed what it called a Palestinian terror tunnel running into its territory from the Gaza Strip that it said militants had dug in the sandy soil with the aim of attacking Israelis. Hamas claimed responsibility for digging the tunnel. On another note, the Energy Authority in the Palestinian enclave says a shortage of fuel has halted the production of electricity across the Gaza Strip since this morning. And now for news around the world in brief. Italian police have arrested 4 people in Palermo suspected of belonging to an international child kidnapping ring. Police say the organization abducted contested children of separated parents involved in custody battles. They say the group's members also included former soldiers who organized real paramilitary missions and used commando-style tactics to carry out the abductions. United Airlines commuter flight carrying 47 people from San Francisco to San Antonio was diverted to Phoenix after an undisclosed threat was made against the plane. Authorities say the plane was sent to an isolated portion of the airport where its passengers were evacuated while local police investigated. The threat, which came on Halloween, was found on the plane, but police did not release further details. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says Twitter has attacked his account and that of another government officials. Officials say 6,600 followers of the president's account have been suspiciously taken off, and the accounts of several government officials have been suspended. A formal complaint to Twitter has been made, but there was no immediate response to queries sent to San Francisco-based Twitter's press office. Indonesia has summoned Australia's ambassador to explain media reports his embassy in Jakarta was used to spy on Southeast Asia's biggest country as part of a U.S.-led global spying network. The chief U.S. diplomat in Jakarta was called in earlier this week over similar allegations, while China demanded an explanation from the U.S. after the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper reported Australian embassies across Asia were part of the U.S. spying operation. The Herald said its reports were based on U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden and a former Australian intelligence officer. Snowden leaks to other media have detailed vast intelligence collection by the U.S. National Security Agency on its allies, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, prompting protest and a U.S. review of intelligence gathering. The National Security Agency has tapped directly into communications links used by Google and Yahoo to move huge amounts of email and other user information among overseas data centers. This is according to the Washington Post. The report, based on secret NSA documents leaked by former contractor Edward Snowden, appears to show the agency has used weak restrictions on its overseas activities to exploit major U.S. companies' data to a far greater extent than realized. In Washington, there were mixed reactions from people on the street. Let's hear some.
I always say, like, I have nothing to hide, but at the same time, even me, I've found myself, like, you know, joking on the phone with my friends, like, oh, what if they're listening, you know? But the fact that we're even talking about this stuff, we didn't used to talk about it is good, you know? Because it's, you know, it's obviously not new, it's been happening, but it's weird that now, you know, it's in everybody's conversation.
Well, I just think we're living in such dangerous times that it's really necessary, and I don't see why the foreign governments are complaining, because they probably do the same thing to us. But the thing is, I guess they're sort of jealous because our level of sophistication is much higher than most countries, because we are a very technical savvy company.
I don't like government agencies tapping into anyone's private information. It's private information by definition, so they shouldn't be doing it.
You know, of course the NSA it's easy because they're going to partner with Facebook, and I would too. If I was running the NSA, that's what I would do. Yeah. If that's my job, is to spy on people, of course I'm going to go to these guys, and these are all free services, so why not?
And after some Halloween news, the Empire State Building lit up the night sky over New York City last night with its first ever Halloween light show. The light display was choreographed by lighting designer Mark Brickman to top requested Halloween-themed songs made on 2 New York City radio stations. The 9-minute program included 5 songs and featured colors created by about 15,000 channels of LED lighting that went from the 72nd floor to the top of building's antenna. Check it out.
This is Halloween, this is Halloween, 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 Halloween,
Well, I hope you all had a great Halloween celebration wherever in the world you were. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Now let me remind you of our headlines. UN Arab League envoy Lekhter Brahimi returns to Beirut and meets with top Lebanese officials. A Hamas militant is killed and another critically wounded by Israeli tank fire in the southern Gaza Strip. Finally, Indonesia summons Australia's ambassador in Jakarta over spying allegations. That's it from me and the news team here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very great evening.